What's up, guys? Got this back issue. I had this a while. I actually had this when it came out. Right? So, get into it now. It's basically about Conan. The whole idea of the first Conan comic was in 1970. Marvel, Roy Thomas, of course, and Barry Windsor Smith had done the first issue. And you get some interesting stuff here, right? Where the whole idea was that these mass market paperbacks with these Frank Frazetta covers in the mid 60s, they sold amazingly. Obviously, before that, Howard had existed in Weird Tales issues. I don't know if they really had published any of his work until this mid 60s period. Okay, this is when the stuff really started to get going. And in the decade, right, Roy Thomas decided, hey Stan, let's try this stuff. Obviously, Roy Thomas, so many boomers had read these stories and enjoyed them. So let's get this going. Also, the other thing going on at the time is, right, the Comics Code has now been going on for about, say, roughly less than 20 years. And some of the younger, boomer hippie types, they want to try to push the boundaries of this stifling Comics Code. And one way to do that was to take some of the Weird Tale stuff. Obviously, Howard, Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith. There's a dark bent to these stories. Okay, adventures, but I'll always say, James always pointed it out to me, that there's always a horror element even in Howard's work. Right? And there's Ernie Colon, rest in peace. And so they go over not only like this here. This is an example though. Remember what we're dealing with. We're dealing with boomers. Okay, all your woke stuff, okay, originates decades before. Most of the things that happen in history we're developing way before. There's nothing new that just pops out of anywhere. Okay, we've been on this turnip. We didn't just come in on the turnip truck, right? The turnip cart. Right. About as far as from your typical comic book here, the times you could ever get. Conan was a thief. Yes, a soldier, a reaver, that's a pirate, a serial killer in a way. He doesn't follow your laws. He's a barbarian. He's outside of the state, outside of civilization, right? And you don't even want to think too much about his attitude towards women. Oh, come on. Actually, his attitude towards women was he would never harm a woman, right? Which is already very developed, and he didn't trust them either, right? For the most part. So he was the original definition of what misogynist actually means. Doesn't mean you hate women. It means you don't trust them. Or you don't trust what they say to you. So they go through the top ones here, and as a quick thing here, they've tried this before. These characters, Nightmaster. They tried to get a barbarian character going, but it wasn't until 1970 this happened here. And you have the guys. You got Roy Thomas, you got Barry Smith at the time, Barry the Barbarian, right? The English guy. Very interesting how he starts out. We go to the first issue. Now, I actually have a one of those dollar reprints of this. Yes, he's very, very Kirby inspired. It even says it right here, right? Artistic influences, obviously Kirby. But you also have the pre-Raphaelite painters, right? Rossetti, Hunt, Malais. I told you one of my favorite paintings of all time is by Malais. What is it? The Huguenot on Saint Bartholomew's Day, where you see him taking off his white sash to show that he is a Protestant, which is going to get him basically slaughtered that day in very Catholic France. And you see that he meant what he said. His art started to develop on that level, becoming extremely detailed, extremely atmospheric and beautiful. And they better go through the stories. I remember I had this comic. I remember buying this comic. Yeah, this was a pretty tragic story of lycanthropy. I have this one, right? I actually reviewed this one with Conan's son, right? And of course, they must dissect, because the whole idea of Conan is slated to become a king. So when he learns a prophecy, It can be argued that one of the reasons he's fearless is only because he knows, right? His dangerous adventures with soldiers, corsairs, monsters, mages, and most of all, strong women. Okay, relax, dude. Relax. He can't be killed because the prophecy has not yet come to pass. So you're trying to, there's that urge, there's that very civilized urge to try to take down the barbarian, to dissect, which is really kind of annoying, but whatever. And they go through here. This one, I went over this one too. What if Conan walked today? Really cool story. And they have all these here. Of course, I prefer more the older ones. Dark Horse did at some point make them. And you have the Conan comic, right? You have the Savage Sword of Conan, which was the magazine size. Another way they got around, the code, saying, "Oh, these are not comics. This is a magazine," right? That's how Eerie and them got around it too. Hour of I haven't read that yet. That's one of the novels, The Hour of the Dragon. I went over that one too. So these are obviously they're reprinting the good stuff, but this story, Shadows and Zambula, this is probably one of my favorite Conan stories, and I would suggest this to anyone starting Conan. Okay, James LaFon's favorite Conan story, and very applicable to today. The deception, what happens in the streets, how you can't trust anybody. Okay, and it shows Conan also what he is. Conan is not a meathead barbarian. Okay, he's not a serial killer. Okay, Conan is a man. Okay, not of the civilizational matrix. He's extremely clever and extremely shrewd, and a tactician, and also, as you see, a man of great experience as a barbarian. Right, he may not like civilization, but he doesn't. He frequently works for it. Okay, as a mercenary. Okay. Doing all kinds of work with it, but in the end knows he can't be of it. And then the characters in this story in particular show that, well, you are something else. You are not of our group, but that's okay. He in the end he shows how clever the barbarians can be. And going through, so just whatever. That was good. Now we get to this part. Red Nails. That's a good story. That's like one of the last ones he did with Conan. So you have other barbarians. Hey, we have a successful thing going on. Let's go forward. So obviously King Kull, and you all know the history. There he is, Mr. Howard. Kull originally was done first, and then the Phoenix on the Sword, supposed to be a Kull story, right? By this axe I rule. But eventually he made it into Conan. Of course, Kull was a different, right? They mentioned he's more introspective than Conan. But Conan, look at that, John Severin cover of Kull. So, and of course, Spider-Man. You always, dude, they teamed up every character with Spider-Man at some point, man. Come on. And, boo, I ain't gonna cover that asshole. So, you can have your opinion, but you try to fuck other people's work and you attack other people, man. Fuck you. Anyway, oof. This was cool. This was bringing up the fact that that John Carter, right? Obviously, those properties, Edgar Rice Burroughs, were in the same vein. Burroughs obviously also an influence on Howard. They had an earlier novel, Gulliver Jones, 1905, about a guy from Earth going to Mars and gaining abilities on that planet and fighting barbarians and saving a princess and whatnot. But obviously, this was not really didn't really work out until they serialized, of course, the Princess of Mars. So it's interesting that they decided, hey, let's bring this public domain guy back who's similar to John Carter, but we don't have the license. And so they did this, and this is fascinating. I'd like to check these out. I didn't even know about this character. Fangor. James had mentioned as a kid that he had gotten issues with this. This is Lynn Carter stuff. Lynn Carter coming later. This is supposed to be Lemuria. This is actually even way before Atlantis. Obviously, you can say, I don't like the fantasy world of Conan. Conan is supposed to be our world with different names. It is our world, though. It's not a metaphor. It's supposed to be the time between Atlantis and the rise of the Roman Empire. Okay. This is even before Atlantis. So there's actually Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons going at it at this time. So Fangor is interesting. Right? Red Sonja. Let's get into Red Sonja. Obviously, Red Sonja was not created by Howard. Red Sonja was created by Roy Thomas, and I think I forgot who else. One of the other creators, Frank Thorne. Of course, remember his art. Very, very great artist. Right? I like the idea, the origin of which was done by Roy Thomas. The origin of Red Sonja actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, but of course there are modern problems with this. Oh, so many problems with the modern. I thought the modern was supposed to get rid of all these problems, right? Yeah, but what is the problem? We're the problem, aren't we? The reason why Conan, right? Conan can never beat Sonya, but he never really goes to fights her. They'll have like little duels, little sparring matches. The whole idea is that Sonya, who was horribly violated and she couldn't lift her brother's sword, she wasn't strong enough, right? But this goddess comes and gives her skills to fight. That actually is great. That's a great idea. It actually makes a lot of sense, but it's very offensive, right? They have no problem with the marriage. So anyway, let me get away from that. But explain away. Oh, the quotation marks of doom. How a woman can match Conan. Yeah, because no woman would be a match for this guy. Come on, man. So the magic actually makes it interesting. Of course, they have gotten rid of this. Okay, and what they have in common, which is more important, right? They both have a fierce honor, loyalty to their friends, and they both dislike and mistrust wizards and magic. Sounds like a good trifecta there. I don't trust the wizards. Do you trust the wizards? I don't. Anyway, the social mores of the era. See the major difference between Conan and Red Sonja? It comes from the social mores of the era. What era? She was created in the 70s by Roy Thomas. Come on, man. Anyway, I guess I'm getting autistic here. This is too much for one vid. Because I'm all about being a fucking barbarian. So let's go do another vid. Aren't you lucky?